Good evening and welcome to a regular meeting of the Oak Harbor City Council. Today is the first day of June, the year 2021. It is 6 p.m. We are in the summer season and enjoying a beautiful day. So for our first day in June, I left my tie at home today. So I think our normal attire gets a little more casual for June, July, and August, so we look forward to that. I'd like to call the meeting to order and invite you to stand and join us this evening for an invocation tonight led by Pastor David Parker, our neighbor here at the First United Methodist Church. And immediately following that, I will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Pastor Parker?
Thank you, Mayor. I'm going to remain seated so that I can be on camera. Let's pray together. Merciful Father, as summer breaks in upon us and as we move collectively and steadily back into more normal rhythms of social and economic life, we pause tonight to give you thanks and praise for your hand of favor and blessing over our community. Our life together is a gift that we are called to steward well. And so may we learn more and more the calls to neighbor love and to civic duty. Tonight, we want to express our gratitude as well as our intercessions for our mayor, our city council members, our city administrators, employees, first responders, and community volunteers. The roles of leadership are essential for healthy governance. And as we ask for divine guidance, benevolent compassion, courageous wisdom, and resolved devotion to help these servants and all of us for the betterment of all in our community. Grant this council, Lord, your favor and your providential blessing to steer a course for vitality that reaches all, blesses all, builds all, and betters our world by bettering ourselves. We continue to lift up the prophet Jeremiah's prayer. Pray to the Lord for the city where you are living, Oak Harbor, because if good things happen in your city, good things will also happen to you. Jeremiah 29:7. And so, gracious Lord, may good things be the result of tonight's meeting. May we seek to honor your vision of justice, mercy, humility, and civic responsibility as we join together to build a better community. All of these blessings I ask tonight in the name of Jesus, the giver of life. Amen.
Thank you, Pastor Parker. Please join me in the pledge.
Pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America. For the purpose which being one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Amen.
So, due to COVID-19, there is no physical meeting location yet per Washington Proclamation 20-28. Tonight's meeting may be viewed live via YouTube and replayed on cable channel 10 or in HD on 1090. In addition, the public may call 623-404-9000 and enter the meeting ID number, and that number is 149-766-1467 to listen to the meeting live. This is for audio only. Council members and city staff are participating via teleconference. Guests that are included in staff presentations will be excused from the Ring Central meeting at the conclusion of the agenda item as appropriate. So at this time, I'd like to turn to our city clerk and ask our clerk, Julie, to please call the roll.
Thank you, Mayor. Mayor Pro Tem Munns. Mayor Pro Tem Munns. I'll come back to Mayor Pro Tem Munns. Councilmember Heisen.
Present.
Councilmember Servadius.
Present.
Councilmember Wassinger.
Present.
Councilmember Wiesner.
Present.
Councilmember Mack.
Present.
Councilmember Goebel.
Present.
Mayor Pro Tem Munns. Mayor Pro Tem Munns was with us momentarily just a few minutes ago. She may be, there she is. Mayor Pro Tem Munns?
I'm present.
Thank you. Mayor, all 7 council members are present.
Thank you, Clerk. Julie, I appreciate that, your help there, and it's nice to have you all here. We will move on then at this point with the approval of our agenda. I have one suggested change for the agenda this evening. I would like to recognize our outgoing school district superintendent, Dr. Lance Gibbon, and do that as item number 2B under honors and recognitions. And if there are no other changes to the agenda, I would appreciate a motion to approve the agenda as amended. Councilor Servadius.
Thank you, Mayor. I move to amend the agenda, adding item 2B, recognition of Dr. Lance Gibbon.
Second. Second.
Okay, we've got a motion in 2 seconds. Motion by Councilor Servadius to amend our agenda this evening to add item number 2B under honors and recognition for our school district superintendent, Dr. Gibbon. And I think that second went to Councilor Wassinger. So thank you for that. All in favor, signify by raising your hand. Looks like that passes unanimously. Thank you, Council. Then I would like to move on then at this time, and we will move right directly to item number 2B. We are pleased to have with us this evening Dr. Lance Gibbon, our outgoing superintendent of the Oak Harbor School District. Dr. Gibbon has led our school district, I think, as superintendent for the last 8 years, but he's been here certainly longer than that. We'll give him a few minutes or as much time as he'd like here in a few minutes, and he can talk a little bit more about his entire tenure here. During his time here, I can tell you that student enrollment and test scores increased substantially. Multiple levies were approved and schools were upgraded. Our school district was the largest in Western Washington to reopen with some in-person learning last fall. Dr. Gibbon was named Best Community Leader twice during his tenure, and he will certainly be missed as he takes his leadership talents to the Snoqualmie Valley School District. Dr. Gibbon, on behalf of myself and City Council, we thank you for all that you have done for our students and our district. We're going to miss you. And if you'd like to say a few words, I certainly give council an opportunity to also say a few words. Why don't we do that? Well, I see Mayor Pro Tem. Did you want to say something ahead of time?
Just that it's been an honor to serve and work with him as a substitute teacher through the years, and what he's accomplished for our school district and city has been marvelous. So wishing you fair winds and following seas, sir.
Thank you.
Dr. Gibbon?
Well, thank you so much, Mayor Severns and City Council. I'm honored to have a chance just to be here tonight, and I just want to, first of all, just say thank you for the partnership that we've enjoyed. I know that Mayor Severns and I have spent a lot of time working together and problem solving, and I've just been so grateful for the support that Oak Harbor Public Schools has enjoyed from the city of Oak Harbor and the city council, and that's just, it's made my life easier, and it's made our schools better for our kids. And so I know that work will continue long past my time here, but I'm very grateful for that. I want to just say thank you so much to the Oak Harbor community. That this has been an incredible place to work. It's a place that really truly values our children, our staff and our schools and the difference that it makes in a community to have strong schools. And we've seen that through support through local levies. But I think about, I'm sitting here in Oak Harbor High School, and it was during my tenure that this school was built and remodeled, and just what a point of pride for our community, and the message that communicated to our students that they value, that they matter, that learning and education is important. And when the community invests in their schools that way, it's really incredible the things that you can accomplish. And I think one of the things that I'm looking forward to, hopefully at a distance, is going to be, we do have another bond election is going to be coming up here in February of 2022, and there's been a lot of work to get ready for that. Huge partnership with the Navy. I know that Captain Arnie and I have spent a lot of time together with his teams working on that, and really over 80% of the cost of constructing 2 of our schools, brand new schools, will be paid by the Navy. And to put that into context, that's about $80 million of federal funding that will be helping to support this effort. And so I look forward to continued investment in our schools and our school communities. And we're able to do this, thankfully, because this building that I'm in right now is going to be paid off, believe it or not, next year. And so that gives us the opportunity to do the next round of improvements and replacements here in our schools without a significant increase in taxes. And I know that investment is going to be something that will make a difference in the lives of our students for years to come. And so I look forward to visiting those schools and the work that will be done. I also just want to say a huge thank you to our staff here in Oak Harbor Public Schools. They have just been remarkable to work with. Just moments ago, I left a retirement party that we were celebrating all of our retirees here in Oak Harbor. Some that had invested 40 years of their lives in our community and in our students, and that's the culture that we have. We've got a group of people here caring for our kids that really puts them and their learning at the forefront, and have made really some incredible sacrifices. And I think that has been true this year more than ever. And I thank you, Mayor, for your recognition for the work that we've done to bring students back here in Oak Harbor Public Schools, really leading the way in Western Washington to provide in-person learning. But that's come by with a lot of hard work and planning and extra effort on the part of our staff. And it's something that we're proud of, but I also know that our staff are really tired by the end of this year, as I know that our parents are too. It's been a really challenging year, but I'm proud of what we were able to accomplish together, and that's just really a testament to the quality of the staff that we have here, and really, again, to the partnership that we enjoy with our parents and our community. So I'm excited to follow the future of Oak Harbor Public Schools. It's been a hard transition, and looking at moving along. My youngest son started in kindergarten at Hillcrest and graduated last year in class of 2020. And so this has really been our family's home for most of the lives of our children. And I'm grateful for the education and the experiences that they had as part of this community. And I know those things will continue, and that many more generations of children will benefit, just as my kids have, from what they've received here in Oak Harbor Public Schools. So thank you again so much for the opportunity just to share a few words, and for your recognition this evening. I'm truly grateful.
Well, thank you again, Dr. Gibbon. You've been a phenomenal leader in this community. I know that Snoqualmie Valley is very lucky to have you coming that way. So you keep in touch, and we'll keep in touch with you. So thank you again. Give you a round of applause.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. We got to looking at our schedule, and with only one meeting in June, we didn't give Dr. Lance a lot of warning, but wow, what a he's pretty good at talking without a lot of preparation. He does a great job. So Thanks again, Dr. Lance. We'll move then now to our citizen comment period. That's item number 3 on our agenda. Citizens may comment on subjects of interest not listed on the agenda or items listed on the consent agenda. Citizens may also comment on corresponding agenda items. To submit a comment, please use the online comment form at www.ocarber.org/public comment or email the city clerk. And that's J. Lindsey, Lindsey, at ocarber.org. That needs to be done prior to 5 p.m. on the day of the meeting, or you can call 360-279-4539 to leave a voicemail to be played during the council meeting. Call to leave a voicemail after 5 p.m. on the Friday preceding the meeting and prior to 5 p.m. on the day of the meeting. When leaving a voicemail for public comment, please state your name first and last name clearly and limit your comments to 3 minutes. We received one comment since our last council meeting. This comment was forwarded to council and is displayed here now on the screen. Okay. We can then now move on to item number 4. I assume we've got no other comment.
That's correct,
Okay.
Mayor, no other comments.
I will ask you a few times during this evening when we're on our certain subjects to verify that we've received nothing. We'll go to the consent agenda now. And that was presented, should have been in your council packets, items number 4A through H. Are there any, Councilor Servadius?
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to pull item 4C.
Okay. 4C is being, will be pulled, then items number, seeing no other hands, the consent items number A, B, and then D through H will be approved as presented. Okay. Councilor Servadis, contract amendment.
Thank you. I'm just curious, Mr. O'Born or Mayor, what has changed with this contract since we saw it previously?
Nothing's changed, and I think our
Nothing
city
else
attorney can
changes.
speak to that.
This-
Go ahead, Alex.
Sorry about that, Councilmember Servadius. This is the same request that we presented at the council meeting at the end of May and that we further discussed at the workshop this last Wednesday. So there's no change. This is just, again, asking for the authorization for the mayor to sign the contract amendment.
So I want to make sure it wasn't a misprint or something, but what I'm reading in the packet says, under scope of work, there's 2 scopes: provide a high-level cost estimate for the full build-out of the selected concept 2. I don't know if we've selected a concept 2, but then more concerning, provide a comparative traffic impact analysis of access options for phase 1, comparing access from Gun Club Road and access from Elwha Street. If we made it very clear the initial access is not going to be from Elwha Street, why is that in the scope of work right now?
Because with the timeframes we're dealing with the grant deadlines and keeping this project moving forward into the phase 1 design, we gave David Evans the go-ahead to complete this work. So this work has been completed. We're now asking the contract to be amended to pay them for this work. So this is what we presented previously, the result.
So thank you for that, and thank you for your candor. I guess this is amendment number 1 of, based on your estimates at our workshop, probably the biggest project this city will see bigger than the treatment plant if those numbers are correct that you presented. And so I feel like we're off on the wrong foot here. There was concern, and I know the treatment plant was a different animal. The way that was done, there was never really a budget. And people talk about this, a budget, and then were we on budget? Were we not on budget? Where did all the money go? Well, right now we have something that was authorized, and you want reimbursement from council, or someone does. I know you're brand new at this position, so I don't mean to put you on the spot, but somebody's got to answer for this. A decision was made, and then you're coming to council asking for money after the fact. So I won't support this just for that fact. I don't know if my peers have any comments or if someone else would like to explain. I know, Mr. Warner, you're very new in this position, so I don't want you to necessarily be taking the heat for that, but I'm curious as to why we would have a contract amendment and then come back asking for the money after the fact. Anyone? Thank you.
Councilor Mack?
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, I'm sort of I'd like a little bit more clarification on that, kind of being new at this. I was under the understanding that we were staying focused on Gun Club Road, and then now we're including Elwha. So I'm a little bit confused here as why we're having contracting out and having them spend the time with another one. I do understand the time constraint here, but again, I'm not sure why it's being studied when we already all agreed, in the most part, to look at Gun Club Road. So maybe Administrator Oborn, do you have any comments on that?
As was said earlier, and being transparent here, staff had to make some engineering directives ahead of time to keep it on track. We're coming back to you telling the material was already done and asking for your approval. So I think it's imperative to keep this project going. So I recommend that the council go ahead and approve this as presented here so that we can move ahead, and we possibly will have other, as we did some discussion today, we probably will have some other areas as we develop this and look at scope and issues. We may have some other directives that we look at and come back to council. Those will probably be more material, and certainly if they're material, we'll come to council and for approval in advance.
Councilor Wiesner?
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, I can appreciate that, Mr. Oborn. I mean, it's a fine line we're walking here, right? Empowerment of staff is something we, as administrators, need to do. We have to do. We have to empower staff, because if we didn't, we'd be tying your hands, and the cost of doing business would probably increase incrementally. But at the same time, I do have to agree with Mr. Servadius a bit here that let's not get this off on the wrong foot, right? This is the beginning of a really major project, and so let's, as we move forward with this, I guess my input to and I can't speak for the rest of the council by any means, but my input to the mayor and the city administrator, if we need to, put together, some emergency meetings to move quickly on a major project, a project that's this large, to make sure that we can keep everybody on track, I'd certainly be up for that, right? But again, I'm not looking to tie staff's hands. Mr. Warner, especially, you're new in the deal. We've got to, set the reasonable bar of expectations for both sides. We would expect, moving forward that we don't have a lot of this coming to us after the fact for the work approval. Just because ultimately, we're the ones responsible. We're the ones who answer to the constituents ultimately. That's our job, and we're just trying to do it to the best of our ability, and just like staff is doing everything to the best of their ability, and I got to appreciate the fact that you got ahead of the game, and you probably saved us some money, and you're keeping this thing on track, and and we have our eye focused on the prize. So fine line, again, let's get off on the right foot here, and let's try to figure out maybe a way moving forward with this particular project, especially since it's so large, to make sure we're doing it right. Thanks.
Thank you, Councilor Wiesner. I think Councilor Servadius is next.
I don't believe Councilmember Munns has spoken yet, Mayor.
Okay, we'll go to Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you, Mayor. When we first discussed this and Planning Commission discussed it, I don't remember, could be my brain farted, but there was no mention of a traffic study. It was which would prefer, and we talked about ideas, and we talked about the neighborhood, and we already had some letters, and then a traffic study was done after we had already made a decision, a vote, and the Planning Commission had. And so, yes, we have to pay our bills, and some of our staff got caught in the middle, but if these things are going to happen again, then either an emergency meeting or an immediate email saying, hey, staff has figured out we got to pay for this and do this study or something. There was a big lack of communication that fell through the cracks. And I don't want to see that happen again after our other large project. So transparency really wasn't done. I mean, we made a decision, Planning Commission did, for Gun Club, and then all of a sudden we get this traffic study that was done after we had voted for something. And if it needed to be done, then somebody should have said, hey, you've mentioned this is what you want, but now we should have done a traffic study first. So just keep us on top. Don't just slide something in, please, because I will hear from it from my neighbor. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem.
Can I-
Back to, go ahead.
respond?
Alex?
Yes, Councilmember Munns, I completely agree. This traffic study should have been completed prior to bringing the decision to council. Part of our job is to give you guys all the data to make sound decisions. So yes, I agree with that statement.
Okay, Councilor Servadius.
Mr. Warner, thank you once again for your candor. It's interesting. When I talk to people in the public, I say this all the time. We've got great people working for us, and they do what they're told. So if staff was directed, no one has really raised their hand and said, who directed staff to do that? I don't think you did that on your own, Mr. Warner. I know you're very new to this position. The reason I say that then is we just had a workshop a week ago, and no one said, this work has already been ordered and done. We now need to pay the bill. We were asked at that workshop to approve an amendment for work to be done, not work that was done. So I don't know. I think I heard you very clearly, Mr. Warner, that you said the work has already been done. So there's a couple of budgets. Once again, I'm not going to support this, but I'm looking at the fiscal impact. It's either coming out of the grant or some REAP funds. Whoever ordered that, whether it was our city administrator or the mayor, you guys probably have $6,500 in your budget. And I think that would be an appropriate place to take this from to set this project off on the right foot. Thank you.
Councilor Heisen.
Thank you, Mayor. That was going to be my question is, if council decides not to support this, how do we pay for the work that was done? Because if we are starting a big project and, it gets out that, the city of Oak Harbor doesn't want to pay its bills, we're going to have a bit of a hard time moving forward. So I'm concerned about that. So is Mr. Servadius's suggestion something that will work?
There is $1 million budgeted in the capital projects for this project.
Sorry, can you repeat that?
Did you want to repeat that?
Oh, there's $1 million approximately budgeted in the capital projects for this first phase of the sports complex.
I understand that. The study itself, if we're being asked to approve something to get that paid for and it's, not supported on principle, then how is that specific invoice going to be paid?
Similar to the way it was for the clean water facility. I mean,
Just-
it's-
Well, I'd like to ask maybe staff to help me understand a couple of things here. So we have a piece of property with 4 different access points, and I believe we have a requirement to have a traffic study, but perhaps Alex, you could help me a little bit with that. I don't think you ordered the traffic study. I know I did not, and I doubt that Mr. Oborn did. So I think the traffic study had been ordered previously, but correct me if I'm wrong.
So there is another item of work as part of the phase 1 design to complete a thorough traffic study for the impacts using the access chosen. Because for paying for this work without approving the amendment, I would look within the existing David Evans contract if there are any other cost savings items going forward. That would be my first approach. And going back to Councilmember Servadius's comment, I was doing my best to be forthright and transparent at the workshop meeting, so I apologize if it was unclear that this work had already been performed. I did my best to communicate that, so I'm sorry for the confusion.
So the work had been performed prior to the workshop. Had it been performed prior to our last council meeting?
Yes.
I believe it had been
Yes.
performed also prior to our last council meeting. And I believe that information is available. So for Mr. Servadius to say that this was not approved and/or the work was not done, it was. The work was completed prior to our last city council meeting. But it's entirely up to you on paying for this amendment. It is up to the city council tonight. And if you choose not to do that, that's your prerogative.
Mayor, this is Dave Goldman. If it helps, I could bring up the capital project sheet that was approved in the long-term capital plan, if that helps.
What is council? This is council's decision.
That's the $1 million I referred to, so.
Would you like to see that, Mr. Servadius?
Thank you, Mayor. So just to be clear, we have a general fund. A general fund can pay for pretty much anything it wants. In that general fund is the city administrator's budget and the mayor's budget, as well as the council's budget and a lot of other things. So the point here is, of course, we want to pay our bills. But the bigger point here is, I'm not questioning now that the work was done before a couple of meetings ago. What I'm saying is it was never presented to council that way. And please speak up, my peers, if I missed something. If I didn't read my packet thoroughly, I'll go back and watch the videos. But once again, we're being asked to pay for something, for work to be done that was done, I don't know, weeks ago, a month ago. We only found out about it a couple of Fridays ago in a Friday afternoon memo from the mayor's office. So we can certainly pay it out of the grant money or the REIT funds. That's where it's earmarked at the moment. But I'm just curious what happened beforehand. Once again, this is amendment number 1 of what will likely be the largest, possibly the largest project the city has seen when it's completed. Just curious how that happened. Thank you.
Counselor Heisen?
Thank you, Mayor. To the best of my recollection, the traffic study itself was referenced during the workshop. I remember specifically, it was estimated there were 30-something trips in or out of one of the entrances. I could be wrong, but I seem to remember the completed study being referenced. So I'm not surprised that it was done. I think, but I don't entirely disagree with Councilmember Servadius is that, seeing an amendment to pay for something after the fact is always it's a bit of a surprise. It's not typical. And so whenever we see that, obviously we're gonna zero in on that and say, well, what happened there? So it's, I don't think the study itself is in question or whether it was done. I do remember it being referenced during the workshop briefly. It's the asking to pay for something after the fact that is the hang up, just kind of philosophically, which I'm sure you can understand.
Okay, not seeing any other hands, then we could, I guess we'll look at this deeper and not deal with it tonight or go ahead and vote. What would the council like to do? Councilor Wiesner.
Thank you, Mayor. I move that we allow the mayor to sign the contract amendment number 1 for David Evans and Associates for the Harbor Heights Sports Complex.
Okay, so we have.
I'm so sorry, I didn't hear that.
It was a motion to authorize the mayor to sign the contract amendment.
Second.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second to allow the mayor to sign the contract agreement as presented. Any other input or questions? All in favor, say aye, or raise your hand. Well, wait a minute, Councilor Mack? I can't hear you.
Sorry, Mayor. Thank you. I was a little bit late there with, so before we go vote on this, are we under agreement? And it says, where do we go from here? Are we going to have this come up as the Councilman Servadius? Or if we vote accordingly, can the council be reassured that we're going to do better at getting this information ahead of us instead of behind us?
Councilmember Mack, I can tell you that I will do everything in my power to present these things in the proper order with full transparency going forward.
And give us plenty of notice ahead of time. I do understand, Mr. Warner, that, we're trying to move this thing along, and in addition to that, the time frame and everything. But again, as Councilman Servadius said, this is a large project. Let's not get in too much of a hurry with everything. And if other communication needs to take place beforehand, then let us know. And I appreciate your understanding. I know you're a little bit on the hot seat here, but you're doing a good job, and let's keep moving things forward. So thank you very much.
Okay, seeing no other questions or input, we have a motion to approve this as presented, and a second motion by Councilor Wiesner, second by Councilor Heisen. All in favor, raise your hand. Okay. And all opposed, same sign. So that looks like that it fails 4-3. Okay? Okay, we will move on then to our mayor's comments. Number 5A, Memorial Day 2021 Service of Remembrance. I enjoyed emceeing the third annual Memorial Day event at Maple Leaf Cemetery yesterday. I want to thank all the sponsors, the many community members, and all the planners for putting together such a wonderful event. It was a nice day out there, and we had a great turnout. What a nice event. Thank you to a whole lot of people that really worked hard on that. Community response to COVID-19. Details and resources about the local impact of COVID-19 and city responses can be found on our website, www.oakarbor.org/COVID-19. Moving forward to June 30th, the state is moving toward June 30th as the date Washington will fully reopen. State health officials will continue to monitor COVID-19 and vaccination data over the coming weeks. We will continue to consult with legal counsel regarding resuming in-person meetings, including any requirements for continuing virtual meeting aspects. So we've been in communication, certainly to some degree, and certainly talking to and communicating with other cities, and especially our own legal counsel about resuming our meetings in person. Shipwrecked Shores Splash Park reopening. The city's Parks Division and Public Works is planning to reopen the Shipwrecked Shores Splash Park at Windjammer Park on July 1st, after the state's reopening on June 30th. Investment Committee meeting. The city has several committees that involve both citizens and members of council. We appreciate this service and the time taken by committee members. Thank you to Councilmember Wassinger, who recently helped to ensure a quorum at our Investment Committee meeting. We'll turn to council for council comments. Councilor Heisen.
Thank you, Mayor. I want to encourage anyone who hasn't already to go to the city's YouTube channel, because our Public Works Department, and I'm assuming Sabrina, our Public Information Officer, did some really, really fun things for Public Works Week and had various members of staff read books and, including our engineer, Alex Warner, and George Place. And gosh, I wish I had written everybody down, but the effort was really fun and really got to kind of show off some individual personalities of our staff, and there was some great little compilation videos about Public Works, and it's definitely worth the time to check out if you haven't seen it already. Great job showcasing some of the things that we do and the people that do it. So great job, guys. Thank you so much. I loved it.
Councilmember Heisen, I just want to add that Sandra Place was a key role in that. She had some really great ideas about reading the books, and she did the filming. I just did the editing. So to her and the team that participated, I can't thank them enough. We've gotten a lot of added interest to our YouTube page and our Facebook pages and Instagram because of it.
Oh, that makes me so happy. Great job. Good for you guys. I love it.
Thank you, Councilor Heisen. Councilor Servadius.
Also a shout out and a thank you to Sabrina Combs. I saw that you had put out a thing on voter safety, and I don't think that had anything to do with my comments, but it's always very much appreciated, especially when we have weather like this. There's gonna be a lot of people on the water. I wanted to touch base real briefly on the comment that we got, the public comment. I think it's always good to share information so that everybody's on the same page. So the Creative Arts Fund, that fund is funded, there's a 0.25% utility tax that goes to pay for that, or to fund that fund. And then those dollars need to be spent on public art beautification. I haven't read their charter to know exactly how that board or commission is set up, but that money needs to be spent on those projects. And I think it's interesting, Mr. Myers got a good point on the street. So I want to also bring up the TBD and keep reminding folks, one, thank you. You approved the increase in that sales tax of 0.2% in 2018, I guess it was now. But that money will go towards funding the TBD, and if we stay on track, all of the streets in Oak Harbor, I know I brought this up, Mr. Warner, I know you've got a lot going on, especially tonight. But if we could get that from you or Mr. Lefevre, or I'll try and find it in my iPad, you know, there's a plan out there to totally resurface all of Oak Harbor's streets. And I get the pothole thing because that's what people experience every day when they're driving around. They see the pothole, or they hit the pothole, they hit the rough road. So thank you, Oak Harbor, that is coming. Thank you to staff that put that together originally. I know that Mr. Lefevre was very instrumental in that, but it pays for those other local streets. And the Arts Commission, they've got a different fund that pays for art. So a couple of different silos there. But thank you, as always, Mr. Meyer, for following along, and everyone that publicly comments. Thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to also say thank you to the staff and to the mayor for letting their creativity shine. We have some very clever people, and it really helps morale and camaraderie when we can do a fun project that relates to many in the public. The other thing is a shout out to North Woodby Help House, the food bank, and to Island Transit. They partnered to deliver 50 food baskets to subsidized housing in Oak Manor and Golden Oaks, and it was quite a success. And some of these people, because of injuries or whatever, couldn't even get out of their house. So we had people hand deliver it to their door if we knew about it. So I just want to say that two entities in the city got together for a need, and that is wonderful when we can partnership and share our common goals. So thank you very much to both of those.
Any other, Councilor Heisen?
That was an accident, sorry.
Okay. Looks like that. Thank you, Council, for the compliments there to Councilor Servadius and Mayor Pro Tem. Thank you. I'm not seeing any other council comments, so we will move to section 6 on our agenda, and we have a couple of resolutions that will require public hearings. So first is Resolution 21-16, adopting amendments to the Shoreline Master Program. So I'd like to open the public meeting at this time and turn to our City Senior Planner, Dennis Lefebvre. Dennis, welcome.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good evening, council members. I have a brief PowerPoint that I'd like to share. I assume you can all see this. Okay, good. As you're well aware, we've been working on this project for the better part of 2 years now, and it's been a required project through the Department of Ecology that we periodically review our Shoreline Master Program and make amendments where necessary. There are 3 basic areas that we dealt with in specific areas that I've addressed in the past, so I won't regurgitate that. We initiated this effort basically with the City Council back in February of 2019. As directed by the Council, we have been coordinating with the Department of Ecology on kind of the front end review process so that their review doesn't occur after our adoption. And for the most part, that has worked out very smoothly. So that was a good direction by Council to do this. Required by the Department of Ecology, we had a 30-day comment period, which was essentially the month of March. We also had a joint public hearing with the Planning Commission back in March. We did not receive any comments at that point. And of course, as you are aware, this periodic review is mandated to be completed by the end of June, this month actually. The packet materials that I've distributed, we had an early response comments by our shoreline planner at Ecology, and that is attachment 2. Staff's response to those comments I included as attachment 3. For the most part, I recommended that we accept those comments from Department of Ecology. The draft Shoreline Master Program, it was attachment 4 with those Department of Ecology revisions that staff is recommending we approve. And this next bullet item, I will discuss, take a few minutes aside and discuss that in just a minute. And then also the draft resolution is attachment 5. As we're aware, part of that coordination with the Department of Ecology, they needed to take 30 days to what they called make a determination of consistency. That time period ended May 21st, and we actually did receive some additional comments, which I'll go through in just a minute. For our local adoption process, we are following the Municipal Code Section 1820-270, which is a typical Type 5 review process. This is a legislative document. We have issued a determination of non-significance for this document. We've also been in conformance with the Department of Commerce 60-day notification requirement. We also held a neighborhood meeting based on the study that was funded through the ecology grant that did a close review of the impacts of our shoreline development along the residential bluff conservancy designation of the Shoreline Master Program. So we had a neighborhood meeting to kind of share the results and recommendations of that study with basically anybody who wanted to participate in that meeting. Also required was a Planning Commission public hearing, which was held last Tuesday. They are sending forth their recommendation for approval to you for your adoption this evening. Now, what I'd like to do is pull up another document here, if I may. And essentially what this is a document that we received from the Department of Ecology about a week and a half ago. Unfortunately, and it really bothers me that this was not part of your packet. So what I'd like to do is take a couple of minutes and go through what ecology has deemed the required and recommended changes to our draft document. Now, some of those were on that attachment that came from the Department of Ecology that is part of your packet. So I'll highlight those as we go through this document. Can you all see this document? Okay. Okay. And I'll do a highlight. Obviously, they've included quite a description as to what their rationale was for either making a required revision or a recommended revision. So in the first column here, we have the required and recommended numbers, and then also the action that staff is recommending that we take on that specific revision. Required revision number 1 is just a reference to an RCW that was incorrect. We have since corrected that RCW. Staff recommends that we approve that change. Ecology also has taken a look at our critical areas ordinance and the interface that that has with our Shoreline Master Program and called out the flood hazard area portion of our critical areas, and is recommending that we basically pull those two apart from the straight reference in our Shoreline Master Program to the flood hazard ordinance, simply because there's potential changes that can occur with the flood hazard areas that would result in having to go through and make a subsequent amendment to the Shoreline Master Program. And actually, I think it's a good recommendation that we do that. This third column here identifies the proposed change that Ecology is recommending that we make to, in a sense, incorporate that recommended change. Moving on down, we have a required change 2. That is, again, dealing with our critical areas ordinance. We have a lot of flexibility and I'll say, review options as we look at projects that deal with critical areas ordinances. I found that ecology has taken quite a hard stance on allowing some of these flexibilities within the shoreline. For instance, this required change 2 is requesting or requiring us that we remove the language from the Shoreline Master Program that says that we have exceptions for any agency or utility extensions within the Shoreline Master Program. That doesn't mean we can't do a utility extension within the shoreline. It just means that we would not be able to exempt that from processing a shoreline development permit. I did ask specifically about such a case such as an outfall. If we needed to do an outfall within the shoreline, would that fall also with the permitting? And she indicated that typically no, that would fall within a water dependent use. She was referring to, in this instance, something like a road that may be placed in our shoreline or even a parking lot that may not be water dependent. So that is what the reference for this required change is. Moving to required change 3, again, we are looking at the piece of code that we added when we looked at our critical areas ordinance, the innovative development design, where it created some flexibilities in looking at subdivision platting within buffers or development in general within buffers. She is requesting that we remove that section of the critical areas ordinance from the Shoreline Master Program. The wording that we would incorporate is item number E for that. Required number 4 is also relating to a critical areas ordinance, where in our ordinance we allow quite a bit of development when there are small wetlands associated with a parcel that is being either platted or improved for commercial or residential purposes. Again, ecology wants to take away those flexibilities within our shoreline for development within the of a small wetland, which is not really an issue simply because we don't have small wetlands. According to the definition of our code, I think it's a 1 acre or less is considered a small wetland, so it's relatively non-impacting for this change. The exemptions, okay, that was required number 4. Recommended number 3, and there was another recommendation to remove some wording that also addressed the wetland designation, which was repetitive in nature, so that's okay too. That was not impacting for us. There was a sentence in chapter 3 that included discussion on low impact development. We had a double word in there saying and encourage or utilize low impact development. Well, as you know, we are required to enforce low impact development within our developments. So we are removing the word encourage. Required change number 5. Here's another issue that is actually new to me. The Department of Ecology and the Department of Fish and Wildlife don't necessarily see eye to eye when it comes to their use of the RCW and the WACs, and specifically the hydraulic code. So where I had looked at the hydraulic code and made some recommendations for revisions, ecology is looking at those revisions and saying, well, I don't really think that it's probably a good idea to incorporate some of those by reference. So the required change number 5 takes out that reference of the WAC that addresses the hydraulic code. Required change number 6. Oh, that's a different reference to a WAC that deals with the pertinent uses. That was a correction in the WAC use. Again, required change number 7 deals with the reference to the WAC, the hydraulic code. And they also indicated, looked at this code and indicated that residential piers actually could be designed to be 6 feet wide. Well, we got a little pushback from ecology in that one, saying that they don't like to incorporate the hydraulic code WACS in the Shoreline Master Program. So they are requiring us to go back to 4 feet, which it is in our current document, and not allow a 6-foot width for a residential pier. If there was one that we were looking at associating with a park or some commercial development, that would be a whole different story, and we could exceed that 4-foot width. Required change number 8, again, I looked in the hydraulic code and there was some specific issues regarding the design of docks and piers. Well, again, ecology pushed back and said, no, we're going to keep it basically the way it was in the old document, allowing a certain percentage of the surface of the dock be graded so that the fish habitat would not be hampered by the creation of a dock. So there's not much we can do as far as changing this. So we will revert back to the recommended language from the Department of Ecology. Required change number 9, it was just a process where the a process for the application of a substantial development permit in the shoreline needs to include this wording. So we will make that change. And recommended change number 4. Again, it's a process regarding the effective date, and there was some wording that was in there that ecology felt could be misleading. Recommended change number 5 is in our definition section. We just had a word that was not included. We didn't include development when we're talking about non-conforming development or structure. So we'll add development in there. And recommended change number 6, again, in our definitions, we have clarified that already in your document, indicating that the level for a substantial development permit is actually $7,047. That changes like every 3 or 4 years anyways. So with that, are there any questions on this determination from ecology and some of the additional recommended changes to the document staff is making this evening? Again, I apologize for the late notice, but timing was not such that I could get this into the packet for this evening.
So, Mr. Lefebvre, are you still going to ask for the same motion? Motion to
Yes,
adopt with these changes? Okay,
If I may, I'll pull that back up.
okay. So,
And I feel that this motion, and maybe Mr. Weed, if he's available, will address the amendments that we could make as part of the DOE initial determination. We're saying adopting the amendments to the City of Oak Harbor Shoreline Master Program, which is encompassing to, in my mind.
Okay, so before we do have an open public meeting, and before I close that, I just want to verify with the city clerk that we've gotten no input from the public.
That's correct, Mayor.
Okay. So then, I guess then I'll turn to council at this point, after the public hearing has been closed, and we have Councilor Wiesner.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you for that presentation, Dennis. I just want to make sure I'm clear on my mind because, you know, like any negotiation we're having with the state, it is a give and a take, and obviously there's some take going on here. We've got some flexibility that we had purposely put in place there that the state is removing, and so, you know, we've got some stuff there in red says that these are required, and looking through the response from the Department of Ecology, you know, one of the things I saw was, for example, the dock, the 4-foot dock versus a 6-foot dock, which we were suggesting allowing up to a 6-foot dock. where they talked about making that change unless our proposal was consistent with the cumulative impact analysis. So I'm assuming that our move from 6 foot to 4 foot is an indication that we couldn't prove that the 6 foot was consistent with the cumulative impact analysis.
That's essentially correct. I did look at our cumulative impact analysis, and it does state that the 4 foot is the preferred recommendation for the width of a pier. But the 6 foot evolved through the review of the hydraulics code. And I guess that was just a misdirection. I didn't know there would be quite the pushback from ecology on use of the hydraulics code in the Shoreline Master Program. But yes, essentially the cumulative impact analysis recommended the 4 foot wide residential dock width.
Okay. And you know, without going through the rest of these, and believe it or not, you know, I'm assuming because there was a couple others also where they basically said, change it unless you can provide something, and we've obviously gone through that
Yes.
process.
Yep.
Yeah, it's frustrating, right? Because we continue to get, you know, hammered, and it seems like little itsy bitsy changes, but the reality is some of the ones such as your pier directions from north, south, east, west, you know, those align with, you know, projects that we maybe have in our minds or things that we know are going on, and before we even start the project, we're already getting pushback. So I just wanted to make sure it was clear in my mind that those red letters were truly red letters, and again, I guess I want to just take it that step further. If we were to push back on any of those items by not making that change, I assume that we would be submitting a document that would then probably come back to us for those changes.
Yes, there would be probably entered into a phase of negotiation, and I'm sure we would have to justify the rationale for our proposed stance, and that would certainly delay the process.
Do you as staff feel as though any of these items we're giving in on are items that are worth going into the ring over?
No, I do not, quite honestly.
All right. Thank you for that.
Councilor Servadius.
Mr. LaFever, thank you. This is a lot to take in. If you could back up, please, in your slides. I think it was page 2 of the 5. You were talking about the different changes to be made. Somewhere in there you used the word exempt. And it just triggered in my head when we were talking about stormwater. We've got we call it the east ditch. We've got a ditch down there that I know in December of, and I'll forget the year, 2018 or 2019, we received a letter from DOE talking about the stormwater outfall and that ditch being exempt. And you use the words exempt with one of these required changes. Do those two coincide? It may have actually been on page 1.
On at the bottom, the required page change 2, the agency and utility exception.
Yeah, so when you were talking about utility exceptions, you referenced stormwater outfall. So is that ditch considered a stormwater outfall? And then would this change the status of that being exempt or non-exempt?
I think my understanding is it depends on whether the proposed utility is water dependent or water related, such as an outfall or possibly the ditch that's regulated by a tide gate. So that could be an exception.
So I'm just wondering if, since we have a large housing development trying to get off the ground right above that, would this affect that?
Well, I think we would still have to review whatever is being proposed in conformance with the Shoreline Master Program. I don't think the the public agency or utility exception is relating to that. You know, she made it clear when I had a conversation with her that they are looking at other things such as a road, a parking lot, or other types of infrastructure that isn't related to the shoreline or the water body. And I think a case could be made if there was some project dealing with the ditch that could be accepted simply because it is relating to the water body.
So in terms of timeliness, I know we have a public meeting here and the public is encouraged to attend and participate. I'm wondering, I appreciate your work here. Like I said, this is a lot to download and digest. I'm curious to have a conversation with that developer and just see if they, I don't know, I just want to make sure that we don't slam a door here on something that's an unintended consequence. So that's just my thought. I don't know how time sensitive, if we wait, I know we only have minimal meetings over the next couple of months, but if this waited 30 days to our first meeting in August, is that throwing you and your team off track?
Well, I wouldn't say it would throw us off track, but I would encourage you to keep in mind too, this doesn't exclude any type of utility exception. It just means that it would have to go through the permitting process.
Right. Once again, I've got a fairly neophyte understanding of that DOE letter that came out, but I'm just wondering if that doesn't require a permit now, but if we approve this, it might. Of course, that project's already underway, and I don't know if this can change or those projects are grandfathered in. I'll pause for a moment on that one. The other comment I had, I was looking, it's on our packet. So digitally, it's page 150 in the packet. And hopefully you can find that, Mr. Lefevre. It's talking about the different environments in a maritime environment and purposes. And then, once again, it's 2-8, depending on what you might be looking at. This is 2-8, but digitally it's stamped page 150 in our packet. Okay. And it talks about the excluded, if I'm reading this right, are these areas excluded? It says the marina lease area, including the Oak Harbor Yacht Club, Oak Harbor Marina, and adjoining Naval Station, NES Woodby Island. And then it talks about basically Crescent Harbor. And I thought I was reading somewhere in here that it talked about all of, as you wrap around all of that Navy property out past their treatment plant. I'm trying to spot where I read that.
It's maybe the last paragraph in section C on the same page. Are you talking about the exclusive federal ownership issue?
Yeah, how does that play in? That's in the city limits, but it's federal property.
If it's exclusive federal property, the Shoreline Master Program does not have jurisdiction.
And so if the Navy ever released that property or we acquired it, does that fact, then it becomes, we would follow these guidelines?
Yes, then it would revert back to his shoreline regulations. Ours.
All right. That's all I have at the moment. Thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Heisen.
Thank you, Mayor. Mr. Lefevre, just quickly, I wanted to thank you. You have a real gift for distilling information, really extensive, complex information into something that's palatable and understandable. And you always have, and I'm not sure if I've ever told you that. So just wanted to say thank you, because it's really helpful for us to try to wrap our minds around some of this stuff. So thank you.
Thank you, Councilor.
Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm having trouble with iPad cutting out, so I'm talking on a phone. Sorry. Mr. Lefevre, I'm a little confused we had a delegation from the state come out, talk with our public works people and with a developer of the hillside. And they said, yeah, that ditch can be cleaned out. It can be blah, 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 blah. And now it sounds like they just reversed that and changed their mind. And that really bothers me or worries me, because we had their assurance and their word that we were doing it correct and we should have been cleaning that ditch all along.
Again, I think the relationship is what the use of that utility is, and how it relates to the shoreline. And I think we could have a strong argument saying that it definitely is related to our shoreline, and so that's an internal ecology issue as well, because one division saying one thing, and then if we have direction to look at it a different angle, I guess what would the answer be? I'm not clear.
Well, I don't know, maybe we need to reinvestigate, but I know we got some paperwork on that. But Carl Friend, who their family generously gave us, most of Friend's Marsh, also has, I believe, a couple lots down there that at some time he's going to want to sell. And I believe he was given the reassurance that there wasn't going to be any problems. And now it sounds like the whole thing is blown up. So I am really concerned if the staff or the city sits back and lets this go. It puts us in a rock and a hard place, I know, but
well, I have a recommendation that I have been thinking about since the late distribution of this information and the evolving concern about the public utility extensions within the shoreline. It is possible, I guess, that we could extend or continue the hearing to the workshop, which is on the 30th of this month, and still provides us the opportunity to say we completed this project on time, but then staff would come back with some answer to your questions on this question specifically as an option.
That sounds great for me.
Okay, so I would recommend that, Mr. Lefebvre, that you make sure that you understand the questions that they will expect to have answered on the workshop. So we've got Councilor Mack. We haven't heard from, I don't think, on this, and then Councilor Servadius again. Councilor Mack?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Yes, I am concerned, and I would like clarification on that particular item, as Mayor Pro Tem mentioned, as well as Councilman Servadius. And I'm in agreement with Mr. Lefebvre to bring this back to us for a workshop. It's a touchy situation. It's a delicate situation, but we want to make sure we get it right, and we do need clarification where we're at with this drainage ditch, not only for now, but in the future as well. So just commenting, let's talk about some more on the 30th, and Mr. Lefebvre, thank you for that recommendation. Appreciate it.
Yes.
Councilor Servadius?
I too second that thought. Mr. Lefebvre, thank you for offering that up. I guess my question then would be, I very much appreciate your efforts. It's a lot to swallow. And this is something that for those of us that have been around a while, I mean, the Shoreline Management Plan, DOE, stormwater, all of those words just, kind of make you wake up and pay attention. And I just want to make sure we're obviously being good stewards of the environment, but we're also able to develop smartly. Question, Mayor or Mr. Weed, then do we need a motion to extend the public hearing regarding Resolution 2116?
Yes, so that was going to be my recommendation, and once I had an opportunity to address council, and good evening. Yeah, if that's the direction the council would like to go, the motion that I think you would want to entertain is a motion to continue this public hearing to a date specific, and if you want it to be your workshop hearing as an action item, I believe that would be June 30th, if memory serves me right.
That is right. Yes, that date is right.
So Mayor, I'm looking here, if there are no other hands, I'm happy to make that motion.
Yeah, go ahead. No hands up.
All right. So I move to continue our public hearing regarding Resolution 21-16 to our June 30th workshop.
Second it.
If I might make one recommendation, and that would just be to continue it to the workshop as a action item.
So appending to my motion as an action item, I think.
Okay. Clerk Julie, you might have to help me just a little bit, but I think the motion is to extend resolution number 2116, public hearing, to the workshop on June 30th as an action item.
Yes, Mayor, Councilmember Sevadius moved to continue our public hearing regarding Resolution 2116 to our June 30th, 2021 workshop as an action item, seconded by Mayor Pro Tem Munz.
Okay. Got a motion and a second? I don't see any other hands. I'll ask for all in favor to please raise your hand. Looks like that passes unanimously, so that will be moved to the June 30 meeting. Okay, let's go on to our next resolution, 21-17, adoption of housing action plan. And we have, before I introduce our senior planner, Dennis Lefebvre, again, I'd like to open the public hearing as it relates to this resolution 2117 at this time. Mr. Lefebvre?
All right, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good evening again, Council. I do have a short PowerPoint for this presentation as well. And again, this is a housing action plan. We have tried to keep you abreast as to all of the events and documents that have been prepared for this plan. As you are well aware, the purpose is to increase urban residential building capacity and provide additional affordable and market rate housing in a greater variety in housing types and at prices that are accessible to a greater variety of incomes. I think this plan really achieves that purpose. As you are also aware, back in 2019, the state legislature really focused on helping communities provide affordable housing in basically all types of levels of housing and housing types by passing 1923 and providing funds to help communities either amend their code or prepare a housing action plan. We were successful in obtaining a Department of Commerce grant for $80,000, and the council gave direction to provide a housing action plan with those funds. We've obtained the services of LDC, who made a presentation a month or so ago with you. And again, this has the same timeline as the Shoreline plan, which is due on June 30th of this month. All required deliverables have been prepared as part of the reaching the grant requirements. We had the project charter. We had an extensive public involvement plan prepared, quite an extensive web page development where all the documents were available for anybody to review. We convened stakeholder meetings that identified representation of other folks in the area and the region that had housing interests or some type of association with the market in the city, convened 3 meetings to get their feedback and have discussions on various aspects of the plan itself. And we've given quite a number of updates to the Planning Commission and the City Council. Another required deliverable, of course, was the housing needs assessment, which did quite an analysis of the demographics of our community, also served to identify potential gaps in our housing network. We obviously looked at income levels, the population growth, the types of housing, the housing stock needs. And all of this kind of evolved into the housing action plan. The elements of the plan itself, as you noticed, are the analysis of the housing needs assessment, the stakeholders group. We incorporated the work that was done by the Island County Affordable Housing Task Force a couple years ago, as well as some of the staff and consultant perceptions actually from the LDC experts on the housing who has done this for many communities and staff in-house here as well. The plan itself provides strategies and actions to meet the project purpose. And as you, I'm sure, are aware, there are quite a number of strategies that have been identified, and certainly there's quite a workload that will be resulting from this plan. All of these elements meet the requirements of the Department of Commerce grant. So what are the next steps? Well, like I said, there's a lot of work that is just beginning. We are going to have internal discussions to analyze some of these actions and strategies. We will look at priorities, some of the actions that may be achievable and effective or can be done in a short amount of time. We will also attach kind of the resource need, whether it be funds or staff time itself, to achieve some of these actions. And then bring that to discussion at the Planning Commission and City Council for your direction on which steps should we take and which action should we work to implement early on. And again, as with the Shoreline Plan, this is a local adoption process. It's a type 5 review. It's legislative. We've done determination of non-significance with the SEPA. We also, again, with the Department of Commerce, met in conformance with their 60-day notification requirements. The Planning Commission public hearing was on May 25th, and they are moving forward a recommendation of approval to the City Council. And tonight is your public hearing. So with that, I'll conclude staff's presentation, and the recommended motion is on this slide.
Thank you, Mr. Lefebvre. So I'll verify with our city clerk that we've had no input from the public regarding.
That's correct, Mayor Severns. No input from the public.
Okay, so at this point in time, I would like to close the public hearing and turn to our council. Input, questions, Councilor Wiesner.
Thank you, Mayor. All I can say is yes, yes, yes. You know, obviously, what we're doing here is we're taking the next step. We're turning a lot of recommendations, a lot of ideas, a lot of conversations that we've had over the last year, and we're turning it into a plan, an action plan. And more importantly, what I like is to see that we have already completed the SEPA. We have already issued 60-day notice that we plan to look at some development regulations to help implement this plan. And so I certainly, you know, this is where my passion's at, Mr. Lefebvre, and you know, making sure that we have, you know, affordable housing for all, especially our working families. And so anything certainly I can do as a council member to help move the action plan forward and actually take action on it, you know, certainly I'm gonna do, which is include supporting this plan that we have in front of us. So happy to see this come to fruition, and I'm going to be even more excited to see the action from the action plan. Thanks much.
Thank you, Counselor.
That almost sounded like a motion. Any other?
Mayor, I'm happy to make that motion. I move to adopt resolution number 21-17, adopting the City of Oak Harbor Housing Action Plan.
Second.
Okay, we've got a motion and a second. The motion is exactly like the recommended action in the packet. And that motion was made by Councilor Wiesner, seconded by Councilor Goebel. Seeing no other hands or input or questions, all in favor signify by raising your hand, please. Okay, that passes unanimously. Thank you very much, Council.
Thank you, Counsel.
Okay, we will now move on to item number 9A on the agenda, and that is Resolution 21-20, LTAC recommendation for the 2021 single year grant awards. And I think to present this evening, we have our Finance Director, David Goldman. Dave?
Sorry about that. I just need to share the screen. It's the screen. All right. I sure hope I'm sharing the right screen. So, good evening, Council, Mayor, David Goldman, Finance Director. These are the lodging tax award recommendations. Next slide. On October 6, 2020, the Oak Harbor City Council approved additional funding of lodging tax funds in the amount of $9,576 to be made available for grant applications. Last month, on May 12, 2021, the Lodging Tax Advisory Committee met to review the applications received for the 2021 grant round. A total of 3 applications were received, and by a unanimous vote, the funding was recommended as follows. There were 3 applicants. The first one was Whidbey Health for the Tour de Whidbey. Then we have the Oak Harbor Main Street Association for the downtown map, and Link Air for marketing. The amount requested was $17,500. The award recommendations are highlighted here in the middle column, and the last column shows the percent of the request that was recommended for an award. So as you can see, there's the total, 9,576 out of the total requested of 17,500. The award was about 55% overall, and you could see the varying percentages depending on the applicant. So the proposed motion would be to adopt Resolution 2120, approving the Lodging Tax Advisory Committee recommended awards for the 2% grant annual single year applications for grant year 2021. And the 2% in the ordinance because the lodging tax is based on a 2% sales tax on folks who stay in our hotels and motels. Are there any questions?
Thank you, Mr. Goldman. First off, before we go to council, verify that no input from our public. Is that correct?
That's correct, Mayor.
Okay.
No input from the public.
Okay, thank you. So back to council for questions. Councilor Servadius.
Thank you, Mayor. Just scanning here. As the chair, I'm happy to make the motion, I guess, if no one else wants to. I appreciate everyone's input in the process. I move to adopt Resolution 21-20, approving the Lodging Tax Advisory Committee recommended awards for the 2% grant annual single year applications for grant year 2021.
Second.
Okay, we've got a motion that reads exactly like the recommended action in our packet. That motion made by Councilor Servadius and seconded by Councilor Wassinger. Seeing no other input or questions, all in favor signify by raising your hand, please. It looks like that passes unanimously. Okay. So
All right, thank you. And I'd like to thank Councilmember Sebelius for helping show me the ropes during the entire process, since it was my first time going through it. Much appreciated, and also appreciations to Jessica De La Cruz on my staff for also showing me the back end of how everything's done as well. And also Chaz Webster, who will be taking over the responsibilities for Jessica in the future, as far as
Okay.
LTAC goes.
I see one of our recipients has given us a thumbs up here. Mr. Taylor from Link Air.
I'd like to second that. Thanks for all of the work that was done on this. Appreciate it. And for all the help that I received in the application process. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. Okay, Mr. Wiesner, do you have your hand up? Oh, okay. It went away. We will move on to item number 10, permitting software and implementation authorization update. For that, we've got our Development Services Director, David Cool, to provide an update. Mr. Cool?
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Tonight, I just want to give you a brief update on where we are with the permitting system. As you know, we talked a little bit about it last week. We have 4 vendors that we presented last week, and all 4 vendors are very highly qualified. Most of them have Washington State experience. Some of the key features we've found is most of them use dashboards heavily, so they're easy to follow. They use GIS links to permit data so that it's easy to see on mapping, which makes it nice to link your permits to maps. Oftentimes they'll send daily reminders to staff to let them know that they have permits ready to review. And so that's always nice to have. They'll have mobile codes that are good for easy access to inspectors that are out in the field. Some of them even have voice to text for inspectors. So if you have inspectors that might not be able to, or not like to type, they'll be able to do voice to text, which is a nice capability. Some of them actually have photos that mark up. And so you can take photos out in the field and you can mark it up in the field on a digital framework, which is a nice tool, and then you can save it. And then one firm actually has the ability to bring comments from the Bluebeam software that we currently use, which is where we do plan review of map or of drawings, and puts that directly into PDF documents. So it'll pull that automatically into a PDF document. So you don't have to go in, look at the comments that are on a drawing, type them all up, and then send them to an applicant. It will pull that automatically. So a lot of these firms have come a long ways technologically. So we're really excited at the capabilities of these companies. And so we're moving forward very quickly. But we did slow it down enough to be able to take our time and review some things. CAC and I actually attended a training today from MRSC, and we found some things that have been going on behind the scenes. King County actually did a study that estimated for every single family residence you do with paperless permitting, you save $400 on your actual cost of construction of your home, just from efficiencies from paperless permitting. So by us going to a paperless permitting system, we could see substantial savings for our applicants. They suggested we also start with one type of permit, maybe an over-the-counter permit, or maybe a single-family residence permit, just one process, get used to it, work out the bugs, figure out how to get things to go forward, and then fully implement later. They also suggested do not copy our paper process that we currently use. Make sure we innovate with a new process, streamline it, make sure we try and move forward rather than backwards. The paper processes we currently use probably have different steps that we don't need anymore. And so electronically, we think we can move forward and create some efficiencies there. And so there's a lot of benefits, obviously, to going to electronic permitting. We think our customers will be much happier with this process. They suggested our customers submit separately with PDFs. rather than batching together all of their application forms, their maps and everything in one big PDF, and then force everyone to look at all the documents in one PDF. They suggested applicants submit separate PDFs in our save folder so that people can look at the documents they need to see rather than all the documents that they don't need to see. So that was just one suggestion that MRSC proposed to us. They also suggested a solid naming convention. If you have a good solid naming convention, things aren't going to get lost, and you'll be able to save time and be able to retrieve information more consistently. So a lot of good recommendations out there from people that have been through this before. So next up, what we hope to do next, Sarah and I are going to go out and develop some questions and then send them around to various references from these firms that have been successful. They've given us some references of various agencies that use their services. And then we'll check those out. We're going to meet again in a week with all the reviewers that have been through this process internally on our team. And then after that, we'll try and sit down and debrief, see who's going to come to the top of the field, so maybe who comes in second, and see how we come to a final resolution as to which company we decide to go forward with as a recommendation to you and who we select, and that will be on June 30th. So again, we've slowed this down enough for us to take our time and select the right company and get a contract ready for you so that it's bulletproof and ready to go. Hopefully, we can get this company on board fast enough, though, so that we can get this process done by the end of the year and start fresh for January 1st. Originally, I had set November 1st as our go live date. But I did that with the intention, knowing that it probably would slip for some reason and we need more time. And so logically, it would take a little extra time, which it is. So I'm hoping for January 1st to actually go live with this process. If we are successful by June 30th and have a firm in place, I would hope they would start work right away in July. So I think this is going to be a big win for all of us to have a new permit system and go paperless completely in our process. So thanks for your time and attention, and I look forward to moving forward.
Thank you, Mr. Cool. Any council questions or input? Councilor Mack.
Yes, I'd like to thank thank you, Mayor. I'd like to thank Mr. Cool, David, all your efforts, and CAC for attending that extra seminar there. This is exciting. I'm anxious for us to get there. This has been a topic for amongst the development community for years. And like I said, I'm anxious to get where we need to be, and I'm sure a lot of other people are too. So keep up the good work, and we'll get fine-tuned on which company represents us the most. Thank you.
Thank you.
Councilor Servadius.
Just wanted to say thank you to both of you for your efforts. There's a couple of things there, Mr. Cool, that was music to my ears. Don't duplicate your paper processes and innovate. That I'm paraphrasing your words. Those were great. And then come up with a solid naming convention. I think those are very sound recommendations from municipalities and organizations that have gone through this before us. So keep up the good work. This is exciting stuff. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you to council for those comments. Okay, then we will, at this time, the council will take a brief recess. I don't know how long you need, but we will then move into executive session for the purpose of discussing litigation or potential litigation with legal counsel per RCW 4230-110, Section 1I. Anticipated duration after we get started is 30 minutes. So what we'll plan to start that session at 7:50. Is that enough time? 6 minutes? Is that enough? Okay. Looks like nobody is saying no. We'll start that and then plan to be back We won't make any decisions during that session. It is not open to the public, and we expect to be 30 minutes. Okay?
Okay, Mayor.
Okay, so this is Mayor Bob Severns. Oak Harbor City Council has been in executive session until just recently. No decisions were made during that time. That was an executive session to discuss litigation or potential litigation. And so I'd like to just open our regular meeting back up, and I believe there are no further business to be discussed unless council would like to, and if not, then I'll accept a motion to adjourn.
Mayor, I move to adjourn.
Okay,
Second.
got a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye. Okay. So I'm gonna just stay here.
I'll wait for Lisa direction here,
Okay.
our producer.